Well, I wasn't really.
It's 7 minutes after 8 o'clock, and we were hoping for Tracy Matrano this morning. Apparent schedule conflict or something, so we have on Shawn Hogan, the Steuben County Democrat chair. Shawn, thanks for coming on in Tracy Matrano's place today.
It's a pleasure, Brian, to always be with you on this Holy Thursday.
Shawn Hogan, Tracy Matrano, I'm guessing like other candidates, Tracy, I'm guessing the other candidates are doing this too. Tracy Matrano has been doing some online campaigning recently. She did some online town hall, I believe, on Monday night. How are things going for the Matrano campaign, Shawn?
Well, this is a different world for everybody, and particularly, politicians who are running for office. They virtually have to go to a virtual campaign, a social media campaign, using social media such as Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Skyping and Zoom. And so everyone's kind of a different world and a learning curve for those who are running for office. And it doesn't just affect, like Tracy, who's running for our congressional seat here, but also, we have Assembly and Senate races. Leslie Daines Burke has had a number of meetings, virtual meetings, online, et cetera, where people can ask questions and things of that nature. So it's a new world. It's a different way of doing things. And, like most politicians are people-oriented. They want to be out with the people. They want to be mingling and, getting in gatherings and shaking hands. Well, it's just not possible. So we'll see how it plays out. And it's a very interesting dynamic to politics. But it's a new reality, so we'll all learn something and see how this plays out. And if a person can be or a candidate can be successful by reaching out virtually to their constituents.
One of the reasons we did reach out to Tracy Matrano, and we're going to hope to have Leslie Daines Burke on next week, is because we've had the incumbents on a lot because of the situation, but we don't want to be unfair to the candidates who are running. Pulled up an article from the Messenger Post's website, and it was written back in February, and talks about Tracy Matrano and health care. The article by Julie Sherwood says that the average middle-class family pays $8,000 a year in taxes for state and federal health care costs, says Tracy Matrano in her first media call of the year. We spend too much on it, Tracy Matrano says, and people spend too much on health care. Now, this is a topic that you, Shawn Hogan, would be knowledgeable about because you're on the hospital board of directors. Your thoughts on what Tracy Matrano said there?
Well, I don't think it's any secret or any revelation to most people that they do pay an inordinate amount of their income and health care costs, particularly a lot of people who are working and they work for employers that provide very high deductible insurance programs. The insurance to reduce costs, that people are more and more accepting the responsibility of paying higher copays in these high deductible plans. Sometimes the benefits don't kick in until the family has spent $2,500 or $3,000, and there's high copays for doctor's visits and for testing procedures and things like that. That's been the way the health insurance has gone for many people. Even on the exchanges, you have your choice of picking a platinum, a gold, a silver, or a bronze plan. And, obviously the bronze plan is just a little safety net thing with very high deductibles. But if you work your way up to platinum, you still have deductibles. So not only do they have to pay a premium, but they also have to pay on top of that to access services, from the healthcare community. And that's just the way our system is. I fully support, private insurance companies as an option. And, New York has been better than most as far as providing a safety net on their insurance platform that's out there. In fact, they've just reopened the insurance platform for many people who have lost their jobs, where they can get on the exchange and now, because of what they call life-altering circumstances, a loss of job or loss of coverage, where they can get on the exchange and get some type of insurance for safety net purposes. Also, a lot of these newly unemployed people will end up qualifying for Medicaid, which will further exacerbate the situation in New York State where Medicaid, they're dealing with a $6 billion shortfall now. So this is going to have wide-ranging impacts on budgets, on people's finances at home, and it's going to be a horrible financial impact to many, many, many millions of people, just to maintain health care. And talk about hospitals. Look at the hospitals. They're not able to do surgeries or non-emergency surgeries or a lot of the outpatient procedures that they're normally able to do. So they're losing millions in income. I mean, literally millions. So we're going to have to worry about shoring up and propping up hospitals, not just in Hornell, but in the entire region of New York State, because they're providing these services in this COVID-19 pandemic, and they're not doing anything else. And so they're not generating income, but their expenses are expanding exponentially. So it's a weird world we're living in, and it's tough. That's why we've got to continue to practice social distancing, stay home, only go out for essential things, go out by yourself if you have to shop, keep your 6 feet or further distance from people, because the more we can lower that curve and not put the burden on the hospitals, the sooner we're going to be able to try to see some sense of normalcy in our lives. But yeah, it's definitely. I think after all this is over, you're going to see a new look at how we provide health care in this country and how we respond to situations like this in the future.
I want to get back to that topic of how things are going to change in the region and in the state with Shawn Hogan, the Steuben County Democrat chair, who's on for Tracy Matrano this morning. Shawn Hogan, I'm reading from the Cornell Sun now. It says that Tracy Matrano has a primary coming up on June 23rd with Scott Noren. The article says that Tracy Matrano is the definite party favorite and has had more endorsements. Your thoughts on the upcoming primary, which was a move to the 23rd? Am I correct, Shawn?
Well, no, I think it's been moved to June.
That's what June 23rd.
June 23rd, yeah. It was supposed to be in April. It's been moved to June.
Right.
Well, Dr. Scott Noren is from Ithaca or a community near or around Ithaca. And he's been a perennial candidate for a long time. Scott, he's, like I said, he's got a different take on things. I'd say, I guess I'll be kind, and he hasn't gained any traction politically, and he's been a perennial candidate. So I don't anticipate a huge groundswell of support for him. I think Tracy has been out there working hard now for 4 years. She's established herself as the favorite candidate for the Democrats, and she's been working hard. She has not. She's been going constantly since the last election, where she came very close, closer than many other candidates in the past, to unseat Tom Reed. And she is a formidable candidate, and I think that Congressman Reed has a lot to fear in the presence of Tracy Matrano as the Democratic candidate in the election in November. So I think Tom, one of his things there, he waffles back and forth from the staunch supporter of President Trump to a team player and bipartisan player. But his record doesn't reflect his bipartisan mantle he tries to put forth. So I think he's going to have some problems come November. And I think he fears Tracy Matrano as probably as a very formidable candidate. So we'll see. It's interesting. And candidates will have to get their message out to the people. Certainly I support Tracy Matrano and endorse her wholeheartedly. And we'll see how it plays out in November. Ultimately, it's the people who decide, and you accept that.
Shawn Hogan in for Democrat congressional candidate Tracy Matrano. A question was asked on the Congressman Tom Reed media call. We played that yesterday. It was a question from a Tompkins County reporter. Wanted to know how things were going between the federal government and the banks as far as getting loans to people. I believe he was talking about the Small Business Administration. And do you have any updates on that from your IDA work, Shawn?
Well, yeah. I mean, this program, obviously, it opened up at the PPP, the payroll protection plan for small businesses under 500 people employed. Actually, is a program where if an employer maintains his payroll and or rehires people that were previously furloughed and maintains that level of employment prior to the economic shutdown, then they can get up to I believe in some instances $10 million to continue their operations and continue to pay their employees. And if they maintain their employment at shutdown levels, then that loan is forgiven. It's more or less to maintain, their operation or to continue to pay people if they are shut down. So that's one program. And there's other loan programs that will help employers who haven't been able to maintain their payroll with their mortgages, their utilities, their lease, and everything. And I'm no expert on this, but there is a lot of information on there on various websites. I would go to SBA.gov and see the various programs are out there and what pigeonhole you may fit in as a small business. The larger businesses with 500 employees or more, that goes to the direct financial, through the Treasury Department. I'm talking like companies like Boeing, or even companies like Alstom, or the car manufacturers and things of that nature. That would be handled by the Treasury Department on a specific case-by-case basis. But for the majority of our employees and those who have been let go are basically our small business. Our small business is the backbone of our country. And we got to make sure they maintain their operations and and that when this is over and we reopen our economy, that these businesses survive and come back and survive. And I mean, primarily it's the entertainment and restaurant industry and hospitality industry that has been really devastated by this. So, it's these programs started actually at midnight last Friday night, so it really hasn't even been in operation for a week. And I think that they say billions have gotten out the door, but there's still people saying that they haven't been able to access the program through their local banks. Fortunately, locally, we have most of our lending institutions are being direct providers, direct lenders through the program. I know Maple City Savings. I know First Heritage. I know Five Star Bank, and I know Steuben Trust. They're all participating. So if you are a depositor or have a business account there in any of those institutions, and you want to access these programs, give them a call, make an appointment. The application is actually a 2-page application, and it can be processed quite quickly, locally. And then once it goes up the chain of command to SBA offices, then they'll respond quickly. So some people are getting their money. Some people have had some issues. I know some of the larger banks, Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America, they've been kind of dragging their feet. But I know our local institutions have risen to the challenge, and I'm very proud of them for that fact. So we can be proud of our local institutions who are participating in the program. Again, that's Five Star Bank, Steuben Trust, Maple City Bank, and First Heritage. I don't know about ServU, but I assume that they are and will be servicing their members as time goes on. There are others. You don't have to be a member to access the SBA programs, but you would have to call directly and find out.
Talking with Shawn Hogan, wearing his Hornell Industrial Development Agency hat there. We had him on this morning to fill in for Democrat congressional candidate Tracy Matrano. Going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Well, I wasn't really planning to give up quite so much for Lent.
Steve, you aren't going to say something tasteless, are you?
Usually I observe Lent by designing a new Celtic cross.
Is that really in the spirit of Lenten penance and sacrifice? You enjoy making Celtic crosses.
True, but this year we all gave up a lot.
We gave up St. Patrick's Day, the Andover Maple Fest.
We've not gone out for a fish fry since Friday the 13th.
Don't start with your superstitions.
With Walker Metalsmiths closed to the public, I could have plenty of quality alone time with my tools.
These days remind me of when we set forth on this metalsmithing adventure. You would work all day uninterrupted. Some of your greatest masterpieces were wrought on your solitary workbench.
Just me and the radio.
The tradition at Walker Metalsmiths is about faith, love, and heritage. For now, we all need to turn up the patience and social restraint.
Lent is a season with a glorious ending.
This too shall pass.
Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering has been serving this area for many years. During life's ups and downs, we've never quite experienced anything like this. There's no official day or time set for us all to go back to business as usual, but Mullins wants you to know they're there for you and your flooring projects. And it's also a good time to say thanks to all the loyal customers and remind you to support all area local small businesses to help them stay afloat during this unprecedented time. Be safe and stay healthy. From your friends at Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering in Almond.
Shawn Hogan in on the Newsmaker show, the 8 a.m. Newsmaker show this morning. He's in for Democrat Tracy Matrano. We have Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard coming up at 8:30. At 9 o'clock to 9:30, we have Dr. Ismail Mayer, Dr. John Robshaw, and St. James CEO Brian O'Donovan. Again, that'll be 9 to 9:30. Apologies to our Kilmeade fans. We've had to interrupt both Brian Kilmeade and Rush Limbaugh and Dave Ramsey for the Governor Andrew Cuomo press conferences and the President Donald Trump press conferences. And we realize that's irritating to some of our listeners, but in this emergency situation, I'm sorry that that's the way it goes. Shawn Hogan, We just referenced the Governor Andrew Cuomo press conferences. Your thoughts on the job that Governor Cuomo's doing?
Well, I think that the governor's done an exceptional job. I think he's hit the issue straightforward. He answers questions. He's informative, and most of all, I think he's been honest in his review of the situation. Obviously, New York State is the epicenter for the COVID-19. Not only if you take the state as a single state, we lead the world as a state. If you take in the USA, obviously we're about 4 times higher COVID cases in the USA than any other nation. But New York State, actually, if you take in France, Germany, and Italy, and the major countries in Europe, we have more cases in New York State than they do in their whole countries. So obviously, it's a catastrophic situation here in New York, and I think he's managed it well. If you look at the number of deaths in New York State, it's actually right now twice, or almost 3 times higher than the number of lives we lost in 9/11. So it's a tremendous tragedy. And like the governor says, each of those deaths has a face to it, has a family attached to it. So it's a tremendous, awful tragedy. And I think I know he's taken a lot of heat about saying, he needs to get ventilators from upstate to downstate. But, they're sending ventilators from California and Oregon and other states to New York State. And I get a little bit bristly when I hear people from upstate New York, bash the governor for saying if they have unused ventilators up here, or at least, a small percentage, could you send them to New York City? And to take a callous attitude and no empathy and no caring and say, wow, that's upstate, downstate. I'm sick of that upstate, downstate nonsense. And people ought to get a little common sense and a little compassion and start pulling together as a state and as a nation. And, other states are sending stuff here, and we, some people, not all, some people have to express their hate for the governor, number one, because maybe they don't agree with his SAFE Act proposal. But in all retrospect, the governor has done a great job. I think he's showed his ability as a leader.
With that, we have to go. I want to thank you, Shawn Hogan, for coming on for Tracy Metrano this morning. And you had a lot of good business advice in there and a lot of interesting insights. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome, Brian. Bye-bye.
It's AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard just called in. We'll be with him in just a moment.
They all count. Because every time dads like us take a moment like that to spend with our kids,
Connell slated to bring this $251 billion